Welcome to Non-Partisan Hacks, the podcast where we talk about good government from the local level on up. I'm Joel Grenz, a city councillor here in Parksville.
And I'm Sean Wood, also a councillor in Parksville. And Joel, I'm warning listeners right up front, this episode may go a little off the rails.
You actually read that.
We're talking trains, tracks, and trestles, and yes, there will be bad train humor. We'll try to put the brakes on it, but no promises.
I made you do all these bad train puns.
Yeah, you did. I did not write this stuff, by the way.
Our guest today is Thomas Bevan, the new CEO of the Island Corridor Foundation, which is the nonprofit that owns the rail corridor stretching from Victoria all the way to Courtenay. Plus there's a branch to Port Alberni and Lake Cowichan as well.
Thomas is a professional planner who's worked on some pretty major housing and redevelopment projects, and now he's tackling a challenge that involves every kind of government you can imagine: federal, provincial, municipal, regional, First Nations, and maybe even the odd strata council.
Oh, and our tradition for guests. Thomas, did you get the bread?
I got the bread and I'm excited, and thanks so much for having me, Joel and Sean. It's a real beautiful day out on the deck here, and let's get into it.
Yeah, so we are actually on my deck today, which you may have noticed abuts the corridor, the Island Corridor, which is you probably crossed it a couple times to get here, including to get up to my deck.
Yeah, it really is the spine or the connective piece of infrastructure of the island, and I think there's a lot of people's backyards we go through.
Thomas, first of all, thank you so much for making time for our little podcast here. We really appreciate it. And of course, you and I have chatted a few times before, and we already get along really well, and I appreciate you making time. You've been in the role for a few months now, CEO. What has surprised you most so far?
It's really a dream job. I'm a planner, and the whole railway world was totally new to me. I'm an urbanist, so I'm a big proponent of people moving together and walkability and having cities and land use be smart and efficient, respecting the land. So all of those facets are a huge part of the job, and I knew that was going to be part of it. The relationships I knew were going to be important, and they're probably the most important thing of the job, and it's just such an incredible privilege, and feel so honored to be able to go up and down the island meeting folks, meeting change makers, meeting people who care so much about this corridor. It's such a gift to me. So I'm so thankful to be in this role. It's been over a year now, actually, so I feel I can't say the new card too much anymore when I get in trouble, but I'll try and use that one or two more.
You can keep using that.
But it's I still feel as motivated as ever. It's a difficult one. I knew it was going to be hard. I knew I was a bit of a Hail Mary pass, but it's tough. It's tough, but we got a team that is so tenacious. There's 4 of us, and we're here to serve Vancouver Island and serve the future, and we want to make sure this corridor can be relevant and useful, and I think we're going to do it.
Thomas, can you... It's called the Island Corridor Foundation, and you use the word corridor a couple of times there. Can you explain?
There's a closet, right?
The which?
Oh, a hallway? What is a corridor?
I was gonna get Thomas to explain a little bit about why we call it a corridor, not just like a rail line. Like, kind of expound on.
But
that
also bear in mind that maybe people don't even realize that there is a rail line or corridor that goes all the way up and down Vancouver Island. So maybe a little bit of background on people that are new. That you're new to the job, but people may be entirely new to this idea that there's a rail line, or formerly rail line that You explain.
Totally. Well, it's got a long history in the settler history, at least, of Vancouver Island. It's pretty much the definition of what started it all for the colonization project, and having the resources extracted from this land by Dunsmuir originally, and the subsequent companies after. The railway was a deal that if it got built, and I think it's about 2.5 million acres of land was given to build this railway, and then it was used to get the resources and extract the wealth. So
this goes into the history, though, of why. I think it was why BC joined Canada, or why or why Vancouver Island joined BC, or I forget what.
I think both. I think the history was about, is that almost 130 years ago, 40 years ago now. So I had actually heard too that the original end of the line for the whole Trans-Canada Railway was going to be Victoria or Esquimalt, and it was going to go up north to Port Hardy and then over to Prince Rupert, and Vancouver was just this little logging camp called Hastings Mill, and it was the Fraser Valley with the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, but there was no kind of industrial project really in the Lower Mainland, and Victoria was quite a developed place even in the 1860s. Same with Nanaimo with the coal,
right?
And the government thought they would bring a railway from the north of the island to the south, but quickly they found out getting across the strait there would be too difficult and costly, so they decided to just end it in the Lower Mainland. First Port Moody, and then they bypassed that because they could get a better real estate deal in Hastings town site, and so they went to the West End, and the rest was history.
Wow. Okay.
Right on.
Yeah. So that's a bit. Well, there's a crash course in the history.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we kind of today then with this rail line or this corridor? What is there now? What are people using it for? What can we know about that?
Yeah, I think to say that it's been forgotten about by a lot of people is pretty fair to say. And the past 50, 60 years has been about the car. Mm-hmm. The island in particular, Nanaimo, my hometown now in particular, love the car, love the shopping mall, love the highway. Yep. And so the past 60 years, the investment has gone there, and it was great, convenient, it worked. People had beautiful, large, fairly affordable suburban houses, and it was life. That's starting to change though. And prices are what they are. Everybody knows the difficulty there, and land is more sparse. And I think planning has become more thoughtful too, where people are wanting to see their communities be complete, be places that they can live, work, and play, have spontaneous interactions when they're walking down the street, have options for transportation. I'm coming to the island from the mainland. There's a lot of people who are starting to see how incredible the island is and following in those steps. And with services like the Hello Ferry, it almost makes Vancouver Island, especially Nanaimo, part of the Lower Mainland. I say it's closer than Maple Ridge. And so I think the corridor, in terms of how it could be modern infrastructure, how we can think of it for the next century, it literally connects the Southeast Island. Almost every community it goes through. I think the stats about 80% of Vancouver Islanders live within 10 kilometers of the corridor. Vancouver Island's settlement pattern is a concentrated spine.
Sure.
There is not very much in the valley between the East Coast and the West Coast. It's largely just clear cuts and a few parks. But if we could better connect Vancouver Islanders, I think that would be something that could really be defining for a sustainable future for the next 50 to 100 years.
And what is that better connection? What are kind of, I guess in an ideal world maybe, or what are the current kind of plans that are happening right now to better connect?
Yeah, well, there's the Shared Vision project happening that's sponsored by the province, and 18 million was provided to the members of the Island Corridor Foundation, so 14 First Nations and 5 regional districts, to see, well, is there a future here? To say that there's a shared vision now found is that's not the case. It's a complicated one. Like I said, the whole history of the railway and the colonization of Vancouver Island is deep, and it's still painful. And so we need to reconcile with that past. The First Nation members and owners of the corridor need to be driving what's happening, and we're trying our best to listen. So a year in, and I think the best answer that I can say right now is it's going to be different. And in different areas too, it's going to be different things, and we have to accept that. The same thing isn't going to work everywhere, at least not right now. And so whether or not it's some type of LRT down south or some type of high rail bus up north, or maybe it's just paths, or maybe it's just going back to the land for another day. But I do think if we lean into where the corridor is useful right now and start rowing together on that, we can get something going pretty shortly.
Sure. So it sounds like some solutions might work in some areas of the corridor and a different solution might work somewhere else. And let's get those rolling for now. And maybe kind of an overarching use might happen down the road somewhere, or down the rails somewhere. But for now, maybe this works here and this works here and this works here.
Definitely. And one day maybe it comes together, or one day maybe it's just several different things happening in similar spirit, but they're not physically connected. But the whole principle of kind of public service and having this as a community asset, I think, is what is the most important thing of our mission, is to keep this corridor for the community, for the public, for our members. It was a private corridor. Like I said, it was paid for with the resources that were taken from this land. And a lot of money was made in the private world from this corridor. And then the Island Corridor Foundation was able to kind of get the last remnants of it from CP. And that was about 2003, 2004, I think. And it's a public asset, I would call it. And so we need to make sure we're serving the public. And I do think that is a uniting kind of mandate that I see continuing whatever the use is.
And so what's the ownership structure right now as it sits? Who owns what?
So you could think of it either like a co-op company or a corporation in terms of our member representatives. There's 14 First Nations and 5 regional districts that are member representatives, and I would call them effectively the shareholders.
Sure.
And so they have the power to dictate the mandate and dictate the overarching outcome of what happens, including the board of directors. And so on our board, then we have a selection of the member reps vote on those members and control the board. And so there is a degree of separation between I guess you could call them parent organizations, the First Nations and regional districts, and our actual nonprofit charity. And my understanding is that's just to compartmentalize the risk too. We'll probably get into the Wesley Ridge fire later on, and that's been a really devastating recent event that has just exposed the risk of the corridor and the liability. Because this corridor, you can paint a story that it's such a optimistic, wonderful, valuable thing for the future, but you could also say it's a big red flag, a big liability, and there's a ton of risk to it. And so keeping those buckets separate was an important part of the founding documents, and so that's the why there's that separation.
It's got to be a bit of a governance nightmare, though, to have all these individual communities as stakeholders, say on the board and all that sort of thing, that may have completely different visions for what the corridor would mean in their own area. The average person, when they think about this big corridor that goes up and down Vancouver Island, they're like, wow, it'd be great to have a train or something going there again. And it's this contiguous land that we could do some cool stuff with. That's the average person. But then when you actually have the organization itself and the way it's kind of being thought about now is that it isn't really a contiguous thing in a sense that, well, first of all, I think it's not anymore. But second, the stakeholders are all within their own areas and may have very, very different visions for what their chunk would be. So it kind of ends up being that it gets sliced up and that there isn't really a chance of it ever being contiguous again, for better or for worse. I'm not saying, but I just think the average person out there is like, wow, look at this great big line of land.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and like I said, I think in the first questions around what's the most difficult thing, it's the best thing is the relationships, but the most difficult thing has been the relationships, and they like. I'm still a newbie on Vancouver Island, so I got to be careful with what I say. But with all due respect, Vancouver Island has so many silos. Like, I didn't appreciate that, and I would have thought, I will just say with some of the regional districts, those lines in the sand are so important, and I don't know, as a land use planner, I think the land walks first. Like, political lines are arbitrary. It should be like, what is right for the land, what is right for the people. But those political lines are what drives decisions. And
no, we run into it all the time. Like, on any number of issues, that's an issue. The lines are a big problem within our area, and they're totally arbitrary, the lines, but they have a big impact on how things get governed. And that's where I'm thinking, like, when we look at you've got regional district, First Nation, and they're not necessarily talking to each other. Like, the regional district of Nanaimo isn't really talking to the other regional districts that much, especially on this kind of thing. So how does that work then within the board environment, where you do have those people in the same room and they are supposed to kind of be working on a unified vision or maybe not unified?
Yeah, and I think we're getting there, and that's really what my efforts and our team's efforts over the past year and a bit have been to be accountable to our members, to show value to our members, to bring our members together. It's a tough one when we're for staff, and our board is super helpful, but they are also counselors and have other very busy schedules, and to be talking about the corridor, it's not always the first thing on people's radar. So to bring more accountability and togetherness is a serious focus and goal of what we're working on with the Shared Vision project. And I do think we're getting there, but it's one step at a time. Another little thing that with respect to the regional districts that I routinely run into is the cities. Like a lot of the municipalities say, what is the ICF? We're not even a part of this Shared Vision project, and because they weren't on they're not part of the member reps technically, even though some of the city councillors who then are on the regional district are
right. It's a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, hop, skip, and a jump. But the city manager is like, my city's left out of this, and this is such an important piece of land in our city, and what the heck, like, we have no real input or accountability by the ICF to us. I've been trying my best to meet with the cities, but I'm going to get the number wrong, forgive me, but it's like 12 or 15 cities on the island as well. It's just, there's so many people and interests, and we just have to keep that shining star of bring people together. And I really hope and I believe that the principle of a connected organization that crosses political lines in the sand is a valuable thing, because we're all islanders. And that's what I keep coming, like, this is Vancouver Island, and we even wanted to be our own province or something else. Maybe we could do that, but we're an island. There's a literal body of water around us. Let's work together. Let's row together. And this corridor has the world of potential to help us work better together.
That's actually an exciting possibility. So maybe we pivot away from some of the doom and gloom and towards the positive opportunity that this organization has as an organization that literally cuts through major parts of almost all the island. So what are some of the things that you've either got in the works or have accomplished that you feel really gets that train going in the right direction?
It's all about short, medium, and long term. And so, being at it just for about a year now, still not quite at the long term. But I think we've done some serious stuff in the past year from a physical perspective too. There's the talk about what's going to happen in the shared vision and bringing together and having accountability of our organization to our members and that kind of governance project. But from a physical perspective, I've interpreted the corridor as basically a 290 kilometer stretch of Scotch, broom, and blackberry. And we've begun cutting that back. And in some places, we've been able to cut it back so significantly that a nature path has been possible. And so the city of Nanaimo in particular has been so helpful in seeing how we can get something done in the short term, and still long term is to be decided. But there's particularly a stretch at 5th Street from Hecate to Columbia where the school there, I think it's called Bayview, all the kids were walking down the corridor, and that's the one active area where the propane train goes. And every morning kids walking to and from school there, and a little goat path beside the rails. And it just the downtown grid is kind of broken from the street perspective, so that's why everyone walks on the corridor. So we were able to cut a nature path beside the rail with gravel donated by Hub City Paving, and we had about 9 days of work for $40,000. And you can go there at 5th. We call it the Princess Street Connector, and it is absolutely phenomenal. And it was very simple. It was just about getting the political will and rolling up our sleeves and doing it. And I think it's been so successful that the city's like, oh, is this easy? Okay, let's go to 7th. And I might be saying things out of turn a little bit here, but we're not stopping at 7th. I love to swim, and I go to the Nanaimo River a whole bunch, and I want to get to the Nanaimo River on the corridor. So let's get to the Nanaimo River.
Nice. Right. You spoke about lines on a map, Thomas, and it's really frustrating a lot of the time in government to have those lines on a map. But, we see the lines on the map that didn't exist as much as they do now between Canada and the United States. We see interprovincial trade between provinces, lines on a map that they still haven't solved interprovincial trade. We see lines on a map between cities and regional districts and towns because kind of, the taxpayers who kind of voted for their elected officials, you really feel like you have to represent those people. And, David Eby can't represent Danielle Smith. He is BC. And it does have its drawbacks to have those lines on a map for sure. You spoke about the Wesley Ridge fire. Did you want to speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, there was the Wesley Ridge fire a couple weeks ago now, and I just wanted to thank the first responders and the wildfire response efforts. It was a Herculean effort, and I believe now it's under control, and all of the houses adjacent to it had been protected, so really thankful for that. For us, it's been a serious setback. It was right through the corridor behind Cameron Lake, and 2 of the trestles have been extinguished, they're gone. And the other 2 behind there have been damaged, and we're need to get more reports in of the exact extent of damage, but it's a huge setback. And we had hopes of having that area cleared of vegetation so that it could be useful for emergencies and could be accessible. We've been doing trips to Lillooet to ride this high rail bus, which has been a really important service for the Seton Lake First Nation, and it's like a 10-ton bus that drives on the rails, and we thought we could do that behind Cameron Lake, and we were getting engineering reports that those trestles could support a bus, not a locomotive, but a bus would have been doable, and now that's not doable. So a serious setback. We're just getting information every day on the exact hazards. So we ask everyone, please do not go there. The slopes are very unstable, and there will be the trestle remains, and it is highly dangerous. So please do not go there. And we will have more information to come on our response plan. Now that the fire has subsided, the real heavy lifting for us is really just starting.
Sure. And before we started recording the show, Thomas, we chatted about the trestles were probably going to have to be rebuilt anyways for train. I don't know if that's a bit of a positive way to look at it, is that we knew that they were going to have to be rebuilt in order to support locomotion.
Yeah. They hadn't had maintenance done in about 10 or 15 years. And they were a bit of a stopgap from a railway history that is no longer present. Yeah. And so, serious investment would have been needed. And ultimately, there's been a lot of trestles along the corridor that don't exist anymore, and over time the lands are changed, whether or not that's biting into a slope to create more of a kind of platform, or creating steel structures. But wooden trestles don't last. They decay, and so this is partly part of the natural process. Sure. And I think there were at one point 60 trestles in Cameron Lake. There were 20, and now there's 18. Wow. So still, wooden trestles have to be replaced.
Sure. When would those have been built?
The history I should know off the top of my tongue, but I think that the main line to Nanaimo was built in the kind of like 1890s, and then the branch line to Alberni was 1912, I think. Okay. So I think those trestles though are from the 70s. So they like CP did invest in this line for quite some time, because it was still very important for mostly logging. That was the way the money was made on this corridor, was resources. And we're kind of getting back to the shared vision project a little bit here. And I think the big difficulty with the corridor at the current day and age is the resource sector is changing, and we don't do the same amount of clear cutting and old growth clearing that we used to. Just the trees aren't there anymore. There's not coal mines downtown Nanaimo, so the products that are being moved on the corridor are not what they could have been. And so therefore the economic argument for moving freight is it's not what it used to be. And that's partly why CP, or maybe largely why CP left, because they do simple large volume freight. That's their bread and butter. If there's going to be any future to movement on this corridor, it's got to be future oriented, creative, and nimble. It's not a coal train.
Yeah, is there a business case though? Like, is there? That's the whole challenge. I guess the CP said, okay, we're not able to really make any money on this anymore. It's cost too much to maintain, so it's not a good business for us to continue owning this infrastructure. So now it's off to the sort of a non-profit entity or whatever. So how does it work now in terms of paying for things?
Yeah, it's
like
tough.
The maintenance is expensive.
No, maintenance is expensive, and it's partly the reason why in the 30 years of the ICF, not too much has happened. It's been less and less and less, and it's been super difficult to make the corridor relevant. Partly what I bring to this position is I'm a planner. And like I said at the beginning, when I started this a year ago, I knew nothing about
capital
railways.
P planner, right?
Capital P, yeah.
Like I like to be ready for things.
Yeah, I like to be ready for things too, but an urban planner, thinking about land use. And to me, the value in the corridor is the adjacent lands and the urbanism that it can create. And like SkyTrains don't make money either. Look at TransLink, and they think they needed $500 million to keep the lights on last year. And that's on top of all of their capital projects. I think the Surrey-Langley line is going to be $5 billion of capital expenditure. UBC Broadway extension, I don't think that's costed, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's a $10 billion project. Infrastructure costs money. And if we want urban infrastructure on the island, we have to invest in it. And yeah, the days of old school suburbanism and easy resources are kind of over for the island. So what is our urban future? Nanaimo is, I think it's 100 and something thousand people now. And this is going to be maybe a bit of a clanger, but forgive me, I'm new. I don't even think of it as the city of Nanaimo. I think of it as the mid-island conglomerate, and it goes from basically the other side, the north side of the Malahat or Duncan, all the way up to Qualicum Beach, or maybe even Royston and maybe Courtney, if you want. Is it basically a metro region? And it's not quite as populous, but getting there as the CRD, and it's about like 20%, 30% of Metro Vancouver. It's maybe a bit similar to my original hometown, Waterloo region, the Tri-Cities, and this is a macro region. And so we need to invest in urban infrastructure in our macro region, whether or not that's highways or transit-oriented projects and the development that subsequently can be spawned. And you think of all of the parking lots beside the corridor. And if those were delightful town centers that people could live, work, and play in, that's where the value is, and that's where the return is as well. The transformation of land values adjacent to the corridor. And I think unless we can convince all of the parties that be that the reason to invest in this corridor is because of the lands that it can serve around the corridor, that's the only way we're going to be able to make a true business case, not by, you can have this many cars being charged a toll of this many dollars per car, and there you got to break even. That's not the economics. It's in the adjacent lands.
Train cars are talking like train.
Well, it's a very similar principle to tolling a bridge or a road, right? And like even say like the Port Mann Bridge, when they were tolling it, that was breaking even at best, and people were not okay with it, right? And that's why they took the tolls off. People are not okay with tolled roads for some reason in North America, and so be it. That we just subsidize it. We create highways, we create road infrastructure, and everybody drives on it for free. And there's a bit of a gas tax, but it nowhere near breaks even, and therefore it makes suburban development viable, right? Like the most valuable suburban land is on cloverleaf interchanges, and you might know Smart Centers, the little penguin people. They follow all of the highway projects, and wherever there's a clover leaf going through farmland over the past 30 years, they buy it and then they build their supercenter mall, whatever, and that is effectively the GTA where I'm kind of from, and that's been the model of making money in real estate in the GTA for 50 years. And so that's starting to change though, because there's not that much farmland left to pave over, and people don't really like that anyways. It's not very smart planning, I would say. And so how do we have transit-oriented development? And that seems to be very much what the provincial government is pushing in places like Metro Vancouver, and even in the CRD and the Uptown project with the bus rapid transit. Tremendous leadership by the province there, and it's really changing the suburban typology of the kind of greater Victoria area.
Like, who leads this stuff? Like, I one of the things that I've encountered in local government is that you can do lots of stuff, but someone actually needs to kind of hold the pen on it and really push hard on it, and then get everyone in behind the idea. And it can be, I guess, kind of anybody. It could be a nonprofit society. It can be an individual councillor or MLA or something, I think. But someone needs to champion the idea and the vision and bring it forward. Is that a job for Thomas? Or who does that?
Yeah, I would say I'm trying to champion stuff. I one of my mantras is the land walks first, and I think it takes people who love the land, who want the land respected. That is what I think is great planning, and people who want to see their backyards looked after. and who want to see the beautiful natural assets that we have protected. Again, like Vancouver Island is on this kind of precipice right now where there's so much land to develop. We choose not to. Like all of the mountainsides where also it's presenting fire risks and all that. It's a smart thing to not develop those lands like they did in Los Angeles or Phoenix or whatever, but we could, and that would definitely add a lot more supply. But I think the way that the land can walk first and where people can lead with that type of vision is intensification. Again, back to what I love about this job is the opportunity to meet people and connect with basically every urban plan on the island that goes through the corridor. I got to know. And I would say that all of the planners on Vancouver Island that I interact with and all of the plans have that principle of the land walks first. And I think that definitely in the GTA, people love the land there, but it's I think something uniquely British Columbian and maybe even a bit uniquely Vancouver Islander is how special the land is to us and how we want to look after this land. And that means to do development that doesn't wreck the land.
The land, can we dig into that a little bit more? The land walks first. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's actually a line that someone I worked with at BC Housing, Joan Brown from Sinamuk, really emphasized to our team when we were doing the Tuxton project over in Harewood, and she says the land walks first. And I think that's been a bit of the ethos to all the projects that she's been doing with Sinamuk. And I think it's a bit of an indigenous, or not a bit, that's very much an indigenous principle, right? Like it's a sacred thing, the land. Without the land, we're nothing. And maybe to build on that a little bit more, we're talking about lines in the sand. I would say without water, we're nothing. And maybe in a kind of co-relationship, water and land, that's where the lines should be. And water always wins, right? And so when we're having these political lines in this, it's a watershed. What is the right thing for the watershed? How are we making plans that relate to ways that work for water? That's, I think, if there could be some kind of supreme or some type of overarching mantra and person in charge, it would be the water god.
Poseidon, is it?
Poseidon, yeah. That's who should be in charge. And that's what we always have to remember as kind of local and provincial and federal kind of leaders. How does the land and water relate to everything we do?
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the projects that you're excited about now that are happening behind the scenes at ICF?
Well, like I said, I'm particularly excited about planning on Vancouver Island, which I think is very much ICF. And I think that Vancouver Island is on this moment of time that we can be different than Los Angeles here. Our future can be much more thoughtful with respect to the land. And I think some of the things happening in downtown Nanaimo are so exciting with some of the redevelopments of the big parking lots there and transit-oriented developments of the malls. And then the hello and the relationship to Vancouver, and you can just get there in 70 minutes. And why can't we have a hello boat every other hour or every hour? I think having that relationship to Metro Vancouver is so important for this macro region. And I think we're starting to really find that as Vancouver Islanders. And so I'm super excited about that. And that's how I want to kind of lead the ICF, is become that connective tissue that unites the plans, because there still is these factions, and I don't think they're not intended to be factions. There's not an intentional siloization of plans on the island, but it's just kind of the yogurt that we're swimming in, that there's the way that local government is structured, there's not, and regional districts, there's this division that is not helpful.
you mentioned high rail. I think that that's one of the maybe projects that you're working on that could be kind of fun to chat about. What is high rail, and what do you have in mind for that?
Yeah, well, high rail is just like a truck or
is this
any
like
other
hello?
vehicle.
You've got hello and high rail.
Hello, here's the high rail.
We're just saying hi to everybody now.
Yeah, that's actually, I love that. That's fun. I didn't think about that. But a high rail is a pickup truck with a lift kit or a bus with a lift kit, and it can drive on the rails. Driving on the rails is still a bit more complicated than that, and so we implore people who have these vehicles that they've made themselves to not ride on the rails, because you have to follow.
Seen those,
yeah. No, that without too much humor there, it's dangerous, particularly at crossings. Like, that's the most dangerous place of the railway, is crossings and the relationship to different uses. And so we really ask people who make their own high rail contraptions to not use those on the railway. You need to be certified. You need to follow the procedures to be safe. But those procedures are relatively straightforward. And there's a group up in Lillooet who's been driving this bus to Seton Lake First Nation. We went up and visited them. It's a 3-hour winding logging road that in the middle of the winter is super dangerous to get to Seton Portage First Nation there on the other side of the lake from Lillooet. Or it's a 40-minute little bus ride on the rails. And so all the high school kids, everyone going to medical appointments, they take the high rail bus.
Very cool.
And it's super scrappy. It's like made in Lillooet style. And like the weight classification and all the technical specs are a fraction of what a locomotive or a train would be. And so in places where the kind of justification of some serious capital investment for a train or a modern urban people mover maybe not quite there, maybe say Port Alberni, having this high rail bus, like, how cool is that? And literally, well, before the Cameron Lake fire, it was almost in a state that could have happened. We can still get to Cathedral Grove from Port Alberni or Coombs to Parksville. And so for tourism, we think people would love that. So we're actually going to have the high rail bus is coming to the island, I'd like to announce, and it's going to be at the Fall Fair.
Very cool.
We're going to be in the parade.
Breaking news here.
Yeah, breaking news. The super cool thing too about high rails is that they are literally, it's a school bus. I'm a pretty good salesman, as you can tell. I'm like really jazzing up a school bus.
Yeah, it's a school bus.
It's literally a school bus.
Hashtag van life, right?
Hashtag van life. And so we're going to be driving with all the other cars in the parade, just like waving out the window. And then we can go on the rails. And so it's a really great kind of creative, kind of roll up your sleeves technology that I think, well, if they can do it in Lillooet, damn, we can do it in Vancouver Island.
So in Lillooet, was this initiated by, like, who would do this? Would an entrepreneur come along and say, hey, I want to make a high rail bus, Thomas?
Yeah, it's effectively that. The group has a relationship with CN and the First Nation are in a partnership with it. And the First Nation is really leading that project in Lillooet because it's so important for access. It is the best way to get to their nation is along the lake, and it's a quasi-public service. There's a couple more YouTube videos you should check out if you're interested, where you can see some of the details. But they see themselves as service to the nation first, and so they don't even have a website really. Or and if the seats are full, it's like the nation gets them because they have to go to their school or a doctor's appointment. But tourists are more and more like, wow, this is absolutely stunning. It's like 1,500 meter mountains just exploding up out of this incredible turquoise blue lake.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, wow, next level geography.
It's a beautiful area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you'll be second or third in line, or like in priority if you just show up, because it's for transportation for the nation first. But it's if there's room, there's you can pay, I think, $20 to go on it. And I think they have a hotel now too at the Seed and Lake that they just built. And so to stay there, I think they are encouraging people to come and check out Seed and Lake and explore around there. I think that's starting to get into the Chilcotin Plateau or something area too. I think the mountain biking there is really good. So I just love how scrappy it is. And these folks are literally they have 5 buses. They're taking one of them to Vancouver Island for a week, and we're going to do a bit of a tour.
Wow. Well, we're just down the tracks from the Parksville train station right now. So is that something that we could see happening where people hop on to the high rail there at the Parksville station and take it to Coombs or?
Totally. Or Courtenay. And the corridor from Parksville to Courtenay, Parksville to Coombs, other than a serious Scotch broom issue, is good to go for high rail buses. So we need to get that Scotch broom out of there. It's a fire risk. It's long overdue for a serious haircut. So that's our top priority, to get the vegetation down. And then, maybe sooner than you think, we're going to have a bus coming around your neck of the woods.
And Thomas, fire breaks are a big deal when it comes to wildfires, and the corridor almost seems like a natural fire break if we can keep, that broom and blackberries haircuts, as you call it, kind of keep them down.
Totally. It's all about managing the fire load. And I'm not a firefighter, but I've got to know more than I would have thought with the Wesley Ridge thing about firefighting. And it's all about having these breaks in the vegetation. And so if you have a roaring inferno, of course, it can pass over the fire break. But to have this kind of line, a front line, is super important. And so at the Wesley Ridge fire, the firefighters, they were able to spend about a half day before the fire got to the houses, and they cleared everything, and then they set up all their pumps and their hoses, and they put everything that they got when the fire reached Chalet Road, and it stopped there. And that's why it was kind of a good news part of the story was none of the houses were destroyed, and the highway wasn't shut down too. And without a fire break like that, who knows if it would have continued, and even more devastation would have happened. So we take that as a serious warning to us, and we got to be prepared. And like I said earlier, we go through a lot of people's backyards on the southeastern Vancouver Island, and so we need to keep this clear and accessible for fun things like high rail buses, of course, but for emergency things too. It's super important, and it's just very scary about fires are happening with ever more frequency. There's just another one around Nanaimo Lakes the other day. So and
the broom is a huge fire risk itself.
Totally.
So getting that out of there, I know in Parksville we've got a great base of volunteers who do wonderful work removing the broom. That it's full of oil. Like broom is just super flammable, and so we definitely want to get that out of there. Maybe one last sort of question: what is a stamp that you would want to leave on the organization and sort of your vision for your role?
Seeing this as a corridor foundation, and railways could be part of it, but having this corridor that is many things, and making sure we're serving our members for whatever that corridor can use. That's what I'm trying to offer to actually expand the scope of the organization to being about a corridor, and whether or not that's movement of people, of electrons, of water. Out here in Parksville, there's a water main that got installed on the corridor, and it's like I said, water rules all. And so could we move water along the corridor more? I really want to see this corridor offer the value that I know it can to our members for many different things for the next 7 generations and beyond.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate you coming to chat with us a bit about a very complex and, at the face of it, it seems really simple. Like, whoa, why is there no train? But it's actually a very complicated, challenging issue when you have all these different stakeholders and governments and interests and ideas. So really appreciate the work you're doing to try to bring all these people together into what may be multiple visions and multiple ideas.
And also, Thomas, I want to thank you for the lines on the map and, trying to, it's kind of like herding cats. You have various groups and people with different interests, and it's not an easy job in government or in nonprofits, but your positivity always comes through, Thomas, and I really appreciate that about you. I don't think you have an easy job, and, to do a job like yours or in government without positivity, it's just next to impossible. So I really want to thank you for taking the time, and also thank you for your exuding positivity that you always have going on.
Oh, thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and I'd be happy to report back.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do it on the bus on the rails sometime next.
Let's be on the rails next time. We'll do a show from the high rail, and I look forward to that.
I also want a quick shout out to Lisa Dominato. She's a counselor in Vancouver, and she posted on LinkedIn, "This is a great new podcast hosted by two very talented and passionate local counselors, Joel Grenz and Sean Wood of Parksville, BC. With a little over a year before the next election, their most recent podcast daylights some of the expected and unexpected roles of serving in local government. Fun listen with some great insights." Just a shout out to Lisa. Thank you very much for that positive LinkedIn post. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we love getting listener mail. And digital mail and LinkedIn posts. Really appreciate that. It's very helpful actually to get this feedback to know what we can talk about next and what's important to people. So really encourage folks to go to nonpartisanhacks.com and drop us a line. Let us know what you want to hear more of or less of, or your ideas, and we'll see what we can do.
And also, of course, thanks to Premier Eby and his staff for reaching out, and we will get to you. You will be on an upcoming episode. Really appreciate your interest in the show.
So until next time, take care of yourself and your community. And remember, sometimes the path to good government is a little bumpy, but we're all headed down the same track. See, I had to do one of the puns too.
Trail puns officially derailed. Joel Grenz, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Joel Grenz.
Thanks for listening.